You've watched submarine movies your whole life. The hero peers through a porthole. Enemies loom in the dark water outside. It looks so real, so obvious. But here's the thing. Almost everything those movies got right about submarines is actually wrong. Why can a tourist sub taking you to the Titanic have giant windows, but a military sub carrying 130 sailors cannot? What actually happens to glass at 300 meters down? Why does the Navy genuinely prefer its crew to be completely blind? Could you even see anything if there was a window? And why does the answer involve a watermelon? The real reason submarines don't have windows isn't what most people think. And once you see it, you'll notice the same logic hiding in your kitchen, your car, and the plane you flew on last summer. First, let's be clear about what a submarine actually is. Not a boat that goes underwater. A submarine is a sealed metal tube, basically a pressurized steel cylinder, that's designed to completely disappear. The hull isn't just thick metal for safety, it's an engineered pressure shell, like a soda can built to survive being crushed from every direction at once. And here's the first thing to notice. A soda can has no windows. That's not an accident. Most people assume submarines don't have windows because it's too expensive or too complicated. That sounds reasonable. But it's wrong. Or at least, only half the story. Because deep-sea research submarines absolutely have windows. The DSV Alvin, used by scientists to explore the ocean floor, has acrylic viewports. Tourist submarines that take paying passengers to see coral reefs have bubble domes. Right? The submersible that found the Titanic had windows. So windows on a sub are clearly possible. They just chose not to put them on military submarines. And the reason they made that choice starts with geometry. Here's where it gets crazy. At 300 meters below the ocean surface, the pressure pushing in on the hull is roughly 30 times the air pressure at sea level. Think about what that means for a window. A single viewport at that depth has to resist around 450 tons of force pushing inward. That's the weight of a fully loaded Boeing 747 pressing against one small opening. Now here's the geometry part. A circle handles pressure beautifully. Force spreads evenly around the entire curve, like squeezing a watermelon from all sides at once. It holds. But a rectangle? Stress piles up at every corner. Might poke one spot on that same watermelon and it explodes right there. This is exactly why any hole in a pressure hull has to be perfectly round and incredibly thick to survive. The acrylic viewports on research subs are sometimes 12 to 15 centimeters of solid plastic, thicker than your fist. But military submarines go far deeper than research subs. So why not just make even thicker windows? This is the part everyone misses. Weight. Every viewport you add increases mass, changes the shape of the hull, creates a new potential crack point, and this one is crucial, makes noise. Military submarines don't survive by being armored. They survive by being silent and invisible. Any opening in the hull, any bump or protrusion, any imperfection in the smooth steel surface creates a tiny acoustic signature, a sound pattern that enemy sonar can detect. A submarine is essentially trying to sound like water, and windows make that harder. But here's the contrarian take that really flips it. The Navy doesn't actually want you looking out. Darkness isn't a problem to solve. It's a feature. You're navigating by sonar, mathematics, and instruments, not your eyes. And at 300 meters depth, with zero sunlight reaching that far down, a window would show you absolute nothing. A perfectly black square, completely useless. Now, compare two submarines side by side and this gets really clear. Take a tourist submersible versus a Virginia-class nuclear attack submarine. The tourist sub moves slowly, carries 2 or 3 people, has a big acrylic dome, and its job is to let you see things. Being visible isn't a problem. It's the whole point. The military sub moves fast, carries over 130 people, has a perfectly smooth hull with 0 windows, and its entire mission is to never be detected. The tourist sub needs visibility, therefore it accepts the engineering trade-off of a viewport. The military sub needs invisibility, therefore windows become a direct threat to the mission. But none of this design philosophy came from a meeting room. It came from history. Back in 1863, the H.L. Hunley, a Confederate submarine built during the American Civil War, was essentially a hand-cranked metal cigar. 8 men sat in a row and turned a crankshaft to spin the propeller. No electricity, no engine, no periscope, no windows. They navigated by compass in complete darkness. The assumption baked into that first design was simple. You can't see anything useful underwater anyway, so why bother? But the Hunley kept sinking. It sank 3 times and killed most of its crews. Therefore, engineers obsessed over making the hull stronger, tighter, more sealed. Therefore, windows were never seriously considered. By World War I, German U-boats added a periscope, one thin tube you could raise above the surface to peek around. That periscope wasn't an upgrade from a window. It was the only visual tool ever seriously attempted in military submarine history. And that culture, navigate blind, trust your instruments, stay silent, baked itself into submarine design so deeply that it never changed. Today there are sailors who spend 6 months deployed underwater and never once see natural daylight. The whole deployment. In 6 months, no windows. And here's the part that will make you look at your world differently. The logic of no windows equals a safer sealed vessel shows up everywhere you already live. Airplane fuselages. The windows on commercial jets are an engineering nightmare. Early de Havilland Comet jets in the 1950s literally cracked apart mid-flight because the window corners concentrated stress. Engineers had to redesign windows with rounded corners specifically to stop planes from breaking up in the sky. Industrial pressure cookers, the heavy ones used in factory food production, have no glass lids at all for the same reason. Space capsules. Look at any Apollo or Soyuz capsule, and the windows are tiny, thick, heavily reinforced portholes, not viewing screens. Hyperbaric chambers, the pressurized rooms used to treat deep-sea divers, use thick acrylic viewports instead of glass. Pipeline inspection robots that travel through oil pipelines have no windows, all cameras fully sealed. Black box flight recorders are solid sealed metal with zero transparency. Deep-sea oil pipelines on the ocean floor have no inspection windows anywhere along their length. MRI machines are closed tubes specifically because the magnetic and pressure environment inside requires total containment. Even car tires are round for this exact reason. A round shape distributes pressure evenly from inside, which is why they don't collapse. Nuclear reactor containment buildings are round and thick, with no viewing windows for the same geometry logic. Every single one of these uses the same engineering decision the Navy made. The window isn't missing. It was never invited. To be fair, now modern military submarines do have camera systems, external feeds shown on screens inside the control room. Some newer designs have high-resolution sensors that give the crew a kind of electronic picture of the water outside. One version of the future that some naval engineers discuss involves advanced materials, carbon fiber hulls, that might one day allow small viewports even on military vessels. But right now, the pressure physics, the stealth requirement, and the total darkness at depth create 3 completely separate arguments all pointing the same direction. It's not that submarines can't have windows, it's that windows would make them worse at every single thing submarines are built to do. You came in thinking windows would be cool and wondering why nobody thought of that. And you leave knowing the people who designed submarines thought about it completely and chose blindness on purpose. The best weapon in the ocean is a vessel that no one can find, that sounds like nothing, and that moves like a ghost. A submarine with windows would be like a ninja carrying a flashlight. So, next time you're on a plane, look at that rounded window corner and remember, that tiny curve is the same idea keeping 130 sailors alive 6 months underwater. And if you want to know how those sailors actually navigate for months with no GPS, no windows, and no contact with the surface, that answer involves a technology so precise it makes your phone's GPS look like a rough guess.